We just talked about your upbringing in DC, uptown specifically. But I would love for the audience to learn more about Portia Williams when it comes to growing up in the other surrounding areas and states that you grew up in. What was it like? Where were you at? Give us the road trip.
It's definitely a road trip. So started off in DC. Some way, somehow, I ended up in South Carolina with my sister and her family. Then moved back to DC. Then, as I got a little bit older, I want to say around fourth grade.
What was going on down Carolina though? Like I feel like you kind of skipped past it. Like what was because the same thing with Uptown when we talked about the dislikes and the likes. Like what was the dislikes and likes if you can remember from being down there in that area? Because I know it was different from DC.
Definitely was different. There's a lot of dirt roads, barns. Like I used to play with like farm animals and things like that. Like it was crazy growing up down there. We had to go to church every Sunday. I remember going to church every Sunday. I remember we had to memorize some lines for Easter and get up there and share and say these lines. Whatever it was that we had to remember, we had to get up in front of the whole congregation and remember what it was that we had to remember. I cannot exactly remember what it was, but just know, as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, I had to remember some lines.
You was an
and
actor.
I was in front of everybody, so I was nervous. So yeah, so that was definitely a different upbringing. But a lot of trauma down there. So I try as much as I try to put it in the back of my mind, but it's definitely there.
Thank you for breaking that down for us and also being open with your experience in that space. And then you were about to go on to when you turned 5, as your upbringing continued, you moved again.
Yeah, so that's when I moved back to DC. Then when I got into the 4th grade, so fourth summer of 4th grade, I ended up moving. Ended up moving to Virginia. I moved to Leesburg, Virginia. I lived in Loudon House Apartments. I went to Leesburg Elementary School for my 5th grade year, and it was definitely different. It's like, it was a lot of black people, but it was a lot of Caucasian people.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, coming from DC, where it's a majority black and browns, Hispanics, and then going all the way to Virginia with a lot of Caucasian people, that was like different for me.
Right.
So that was that. I lived in Leesburg, then we moved to Sterling, Virginia, which I had bad experience there also. I had a lot of bad experience a lot of places. But it just seemed like everywhere we moved, it's just some bad stuff was just happening.
And when you say bad stuff, like, I know you don't have to go all the way into detail about that, but like, to give context to bad stuff, like, what is bad stuff?
So in Leesburg, it was more so of me being like the new girl, and people used to like pick with me and tease me. I was the girl with the big titties. I was the girl with the big lips. So I feel like now that I think about it, I was honestly getting bullied. And then like, I used to have to like fight, just crazy. Then I moved to Sterling. I had a bad experience there. We ended up losing our place. The police kicked the door in, SWAT team, like it was just a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on. My mom, my stepdad. Then we moved, and then I got into some fights there. Then I moved to Woodbridge, Virginia. That's Prince William County. Went to Woodbridge, Virginia. I didn't get into too much there, but I could have. But they were more welcoming than other places. So then, after that, I tried to stayed just so I could finish out the school year because my mom she moved to Maryland. So I wanted to finish out the school year. Things didn't work out that way. So I ended up having to move back towards the city, which I ended up in Landover. Ended up in Landover around 2-5. That's what everybody called it, King Square. Moved over there. Again, I was the new girl, so I was always tested. More fights. Then I ended up moving up the street from 2-5, which is Glen Island. So I moved around Glen Island Apartments. We actually stayed there for quite a bit of time. So I went to Charles Herbert Flowers High School and graduated from there. But there were still struggles there. My mom struggled. I helped, helped her with bills and things like that with my summer jobs. And then I also was getting in trouble a lot. Just more fights, like just always fights. I'm always getting into somebody's fight. So
I was gonna say, was you a boxer?
I was definitely not a boxer, but I feel like, I'm so little that everybody just was like trying me. So, and I was the new girl on the block.
And how did that make you feel in those scenarios, moving from place to place, being a new girl and having to fight just to be able to be comfortable in those spaces?
It definitely was tiring. I'm like, oh my God, we gotta move again. And the thought in my thoughts, and I never shared this with my mom or anything like that. I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. I know I'm gonna get into a fight. It was like I was speaking the fights into existence because I knew that I was new. And the problem with being new is that the guys want to talk to the new girl. And females are territorial when it comes to, their neighborhood guys and things like that. So if you new, then of course the guys, it don't matter what you look like they still gonna want to talk to you because you're new. So that's what was going on. And I definitely got so used to being the new girl that I knew I was gonna fight. So I became numb to fighting because I was new, so I knew I was gonna have to fight.
And that is crazy. I'm like, oh my God, that experience had to have been draining. Do you feel like now, where you are, looking back on being a new girl, how does that play out as an adult? Like when you go into new spaces and stuff like that, does it bother you in a sense? When you go into a new space, do you ever feel that trigger of back then?
Far as getting a new job or anything like that, honestly, no, I don't. I really don't. So I'm not triggered by going into a workplace and I'm the new person. Usually, I guess being an adult is different. People are more welcoming, being though you are an adult versus being the new kid on the block. So,
thank you. I just wanted to ask that last question.